Recording in progress.
Behind you. You good?
Thank you.
You're good, yeah. I'm gonna give you guys just a couple minutes as you're enjoying the finest donuts that Everettsville has to offer. Beautiful ladies at the Donut Palace.
Don't be cheating on me, Lisa. Don't be cheating on me. Last. I'm winning the prizes. I hope so. Otherwise, it's in there long.
Morning. How are you? Good. Got a little popcorn for a prize here. Whatever you, yeah. Did you get a slip from the secretary for being late?
So we don't normally leave our meetings early, but we feel that you're going to bring us some great value.
I got you.
That's why you have the JJK team here. And I do apologize for being a little late, but normally I growl anytime they schedule during our meetings.
I'm gonna teach you guys some awesome facts about passive radon systems. You're gonna be riveted.
Riveting.
Riveted.
I can tell by your voice, you're gonna be riveted.
Riveted. But you didn't get a prize in high school. You just got more work.
Right.
After the I'll still be surprised about how much I do know.
What's the van for? The big decal van out front? What do y'all use that for? Just like
That's for
everything,
my pleasure.
just everything. That's why the windows are all covered.
Hey, before it was wrapped, it was even creepier.
Does it have a sliding side door? Because if they open like this, it's not as cool.
Yeah, that is fine.
We take it in, we took it in like the Warning Girl, like in the
Gotcha.
parades, we're gonna take it in, Italian Fest coming up this weekend.
Gotcha.
And we offer complimentary staging for our listings, accessory staging.
Oh,
Don't
okay.
bring in beds or sofas or anything.
Yeah.
So we have a warehouse that has all kinds of stuff in it and we use that.
Cool. So like fancy little vases, little flowers, little vases. All right, y'all ready? Okay. So before I go through that and give somebody a really awesome prize, my name is Jake. I'm one of the partners over at AirSense Environmental. We do indoor air quality, but primarily we do radon mitigation and testing. We recently came on board with Keller Williams Marquis as a preferred vendor for radon testing and mitigation. So we took a little opportunity to come in. I'm going to talk about something that's just like a little bit offbeat about radon. The passive systems are something that a lot of people are just really not aware of in real estate and they're new construction mostly. So just going to take an opportunity to talk about that. I won't keep you guys terribly long. Okay, question one, radon is a liquid, gas, or solid? Gas is correct. Radon is, circle all that apply, odorless, tasteless, invisible, and harmless.
I didn't read that one.
Okay, should have, yep, should have had all of them except harmless. Radon occurs from the decay of uranium is correct, yeah, so.
Well, I think it was kryptonite, Superman steel.
Yeah, so as pockets of uranium under the ground decay, if you follow that decay chain, it eventually lands on radon. Radon's a gas. Those particles, the interesting thing about radon is the way that they are negatively and positively charged as an atom. They don't sink or float. So as your air conditioning or whatever the case may be moves it around the house, they stay at whatever height that they kind of exist in. So they don't like come in and then eventually sink down and become harmless. They float until they fully decay. So that's why they're dangerous, because as you're kind of walking around, you're breathing and all those things. And that's what makes radon so kind of dangerous and how it gets into your body. In the US, radon is measured in picocuries. B. At a level of blank, the EPA strongly recommends that you take action to reduce the levels of radon inside your home. 4.0. Yep. Yeah, anything above a 4.0, the World Health Organization actually says 2.7. Why those two entities differ, I'm not sure. Most people go by the EPA. Illinois radon code, IEMA, they all follow the EPA recommendation of 4.0. 2013, Illinois General Assembly passed a new act aiming to curb the entry of radon gases into newly constructed residences. This act is called Radon Resistant Construction Act, would be the right answer. Yep.
I didn't see it first because, but then I moved to question 8 and saw that you actually put the answer.
Very good, Diane.
Yeah.
Very good.
Context clues. In accordance with this act, all newly constructed residences are required to be equipped with a passive radon system.
Sure.
It's true. In accordance with Illinois Radon Resistant Construction Act, the following items must be completed as part of a passive radon system. You should have had all of those circled. Yep, so all those are actually required. Passive radon systems must have a pipe or a T-fitting inserted into the gravel layer during the ground rough phase of construction. True. Radon-induced lung cancer is attributed to number of deaths per year. 21,000. Yeah, so EPA, you got them all right? Anybody else got 10? Anybody else good?
No, but I'm quite sure that I could find another 15,000 that.
I would say a smaller number.
Anybody, so she had to, anybody have 9 all by themselves? Like anybody have 9? Okay,
I don't understand anything.
let's do this. Let's average level of radon inside a home in Illinois without going over. I'll give you like 30 seconds. to come up. There's an average. So yeah, so IEMA took all of the tests that were recorded with the state and came up with an average indoor radon level inside of a home in Illinois. So 30 seconds, write something down. I'll tell you the answer. Whoever's closest without going over is going to get the second Starbucks gift card. Closest without going over. Ready? You got 1.7. Hi, good morning. Good morning. Who else had an answer? You got, what you got? 1.4.
2.6.
I literally missed 5 questions. 2.1.
5.3 actually is.
Wow.
Yeah. 2.6.
Yeah.
2.6.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what did you say?
5.3, yeah. So again, Illinois IEMA. IEMA is the agency within Illinois that kind of oversees all the radon work. That's who we report to, file all our reports, get all of our license through is IEMA. So when you call them, they answer the phone as Illinois Emergency Management Agency and nuclear something or another. So you feel really important. Yeah, so. Yeah. So again, just a quick slide. I'm not gonna keep you guys very long. Anybody sell new construction, like a lot, a little, every now and again? You guys? So the kind of the idea behind this is to help an agent kind of guide a buyer through that process as it pertains to radon. Things to look out for, because a lot of times the unfortunate side of the passive system is that it's not required to be installed by a licensed radon tech. So anybody can install the passive system, oddly enough. And what happens a lot of times is that the builder kind of goes to the plumber because it's 3-inch PVC pipe. They say, hey, we got to have this. The plumber doesn't really want to do it. The builder is really usually not paying them. They're almost expecting it as a favor because it's another piping run. And so what happens is a lot of times those plumbers, they take the pipe and jam it down in the ground, and they don't want it knocked over. And so they run it out, it's jammed in. We come to activate the system because the house is tested high. And we've got to dig it all out and almost start over at the ground. So things to look out for on those passive systems. And there was something else I had, but I forgot it. So I'm gonna just work. Yeah.
There's no like regulation watching over who installs
The
those.
passives.
So we need to pay attention to the new construction.
For sure.
How it looks.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm gonna show you guys kind of what to be looking for on those. Yeah, you should see a lot of things. Like you should be able to walk into one that's kind of ready and go, okay, this has a passive system. And a lot of times that's just not the case. You're kind of hunting down what should be a passive system. No wonder I'm not moving. I'm working on the computer, the wrong computer.
Right.
Yeah, so I kind of briefly touched on this there. Since we're certified radon testing and mitigation contractor. We serve Southern Illinois, Metro East, Southern Illinois, obviously this immediate area, and we do a lot of work in Missouri as well. I come from the remodeling background, so I used to do a lot of investor renovations, things like that. So that was a great transition to radon. And so, yeah, we're closing in on a year now. We started, you guys obviously remember when everybody waived all their inspections and just wanted a house for way too much money. And so during that time, a lot of the local radon contractors just unfortunately kind of got cut out of the picture because nobody was testing radon. And that left a market gap. My business partner actually works over at Tarrant Harmon, Jason Jackson. And so he called me one day and I was doing some work for Jason because he buys and sells real estate. He goes, hey, what do you know about radon? And I said, enough to be dangerous, you know. And he goes, man, nobody in our office can find a mitigation contractor. Everybody's 6, 8, 10, whatever weeks out. You know, I'm thinking about trying to maybe get something off the ground. And so that's what we did. And we took our classes and got all that. And it's been going great ever since. So radon mitigation and testing that's our forte. We do some indoor air quality, makeup air, stuff like that. But you know, this is what we do every day. So we do crawl spaces and all those other nasty little areas. But again, I think passive systems are something that gets overlooked a lot. And so that's what I want to talk about today. Just a quick video of, I've heard myself in this video so many times.
Come on, guys, this is Jake here with AirSense Environmental. We are a radon testing and mitigation company here in the Metro East. We're here at a home in Calhoun County today that we recently did a very successful testing and mitigation on. And we're going to take an opportunity today to just talk to you more about radon testing and mitigation. So as you may or may not know, radon is an odorless, tasteless, invisible gas that occurs in different volumes and concentrations all around the country, but more specifically here in the Metro East where we test and mitigate. The EPA says that anything above a 4.0 level, which is measured in picocuries per liter of air, should be mitigated is their action level. Anything between a 2 and a 4 is a recommended, and anything below a 2 is up to you, but it's worthy to note that the EPA says that there is no safe level of radon concentration inside of your home. And so as we walk around today, we're going to show you the system that we installed. We're going to talk about testing, we're going to talk about mitigation, and we're going to talk about how we can help you and serve you here in the Metro East area. All right, so we're up in the attic now. This is where the fan is located. This is the heart of the system. One of the things that we take a lot of pride in is we work hand in hand with homeowners to make these systems as discreet as possible. You hear a lot of horror stories of these being mounted to the outside of the home. They're such an eyesore. And so we're going to work hand in hand with you to figure out where the best place for this fan is. This is what does all the work to take those radon gases out from under your foundation before they can get into your home and expel them outside the house. You can see here, this one has an exhaust out the top. It runs back to this roof line here, and then it goes out and it penetrates through the roof and expels that gas outside of the home.
We're in the basement here, and this is after system design. This is where every system that we install begins. But underneath the concrete, we've dug a suction pit, 15 gallons of substrate we pulled out of here, which leaves a pit under the ground, and that's where that air gas has a chance to accumulate before we suck it out. And so the wider you can get those pits, the better. They allow more gas to accumulate and more system effectiveness from you. So every system, every good system begins with a good suction pit and a coring hole down through the basement floor.
The great thing about testing is that it's a very simple process. We use very high-tech monitors. We monitor over a 48-hour period, and those test results come back to you in hour-by-hour data points, and so you can see highs and lows. You can have the peace of mind to know whether your home is below the action level or if you need to mitigate, and we can help from there as well. One of the most important factors of doing a mitigation system and making sure that that system is effective in the home is post-mitigation testing. You're going to see throughout this video here that we did pre-mitigation testing, we did our mitigation system, and then we post-tested afterwards. We have those results. We're going to show them to you in the video so you can see the drastic change in radon concentrations inside this home. And so we want to encourage everybody, always post-test. If you're the buyer of a home and the seller put a system in to satisfy that contractual agreement, please reach out. We want to post-test. We want to make sure that your system is operating in its maximum effectiveness so that you have a safe home environment.
I've literally watched that video. I've seen it 100 times. So we do like the trade shows, we put it on the TV and it's on. Yeah, so a couple to touch on that video, like the attic system. That's something that we do, like when we do a mitigation. I typically call the agent and say, hey, here's where I'm thinking about putting this. And a lot of times we get a feeling like nobody's ever called us before, nobody's ever asked, they just stick it wherever is the easiest. And unfortunately, a lot of time, like we fix a lot of systems where somebody bought the home, they had the radon system, they shopped, they got the cheapest bid, and it's, it's just atrocious, and we'll go in, and we try to be reasonable and fix things. So we do take a lot of pride in trying to put a system. I try to put a system in that if you called me for your house, I want to treat it like that. I want to just stick something in here and get down the road. So we do a lot of attic installs, even on real estate transactions, whereas most of the time, again, contractors trying to just get it wherever on the outside of the house. And you guys have all seen, like, you pull up to the house and it's like in the front right corner of the house, and like, good Lord, why on earth would you ever stick something there? But when you go through the roof, it adds expense. It's the summer, it's all those things, but we really try hard to get those in a way that are an eyesore, because they're just not very good looking, no matter which way you cut it. Let's go.
What's going on, guys?
Yeah, so like we see the problems that we see with a lot of passive systems is most of the suction pipes are being buried down in the mud. There's not any substrate removed. The system just doesn't perform. We do a lot of activations where we'll put the fan on, we start the system up, it's maxed out, it's not moving any air whatsoever. And so those are, again, that's the plumber jamming them down in the mud just to get on with their day. And unfortunately, it leads to a lot of activated systems that just don't flow. Sump lids, anytime you do an active system and even a passive system, those sump lids, the sump pits should be sealed with a solid lid. Yeah.
What?
Do what?
Seal that. So because if something happens with your sump, then you can't get in there.
Yeah, I'm going to show you. That's a good. I've got some. I'm going to show you kind of how we do it. Yeah.
No, that's new that they do.
For sure.
They didn't used to do that.
Yeah. So the big thing with the sump lid is because on a newer home, especially that has gravel underneath and they got those drain tiles, When you put that suction under the ground, everything does what we call communicating. So it's just pulling air out from the whole space. Well, eventually it gets to the sump and it just pulls air down through the sump. So it's kind of like water that finds a path of least resistance. If that sump isn't sealed, it just pulls all your, not all, but a lot of your conditioned air. So you got a lot of conditioned air loss, and then also the system doesn't do great because I call it cheating. It's going to cheat to the sump as quick as it can and pull that free air. So yeah, and again, like you said, though, we see a lot of sump lids with no viewport, which leaves no access to sump pumps. So I'll show you a picture of what we do. System labeling is a big one. Again, you should be able to walk into a basement on a house that has a passive or an active and immediately go, okay, that's the radon system. We see like in pencil radon written on things. And actually, again, that pipe, it should be labeled in every floor where it can be visible. So it should be labeled in the attic as well. And where that kind of crosses your guys' path is like, so if I get to a house, I've got to track down what is and what isn't the radon system, because again, it's 3-inch PVC pipe. It looks just like a plumbing vent. It looks the same. So that leaves me traipsing through the attic, disturbing all the insulation, and God forbid, like stepping through, right? That's the last thing you want to hear is you're 3 days out from closing. I'm activating this system because it came back high, and I call you and go, hey, I'm really sorry, but I've stepped through. All right, we've never done it. Hopefully that's real wood. But again, like all those things, you know, yeah, I've got to maneuver my way through your attic, and it's just the more time you're exposed to attic, the more time is, you know, it's just a matter of time. So again, you should be able to walk into a basement. The breaker should also be tagged if you've got an active system. That way, if anybody ever needs to, they can go right to the panel, identify that breaker, and they're not popping all the breakers in the house trying to find the right one.
So the radon system should have its own breaker and or it's a dedicated GFI?
No, it can be tied into other circuits, but whatever circuit it gets tied into should be labeled so that you know which one it's on. Yeah.
GFI isn't necessary?
No,
for that?
no. Yeah, no, a lot of times we wire into like basement pull chain lights that aren't on a switch.
Okay.
That's pretty common. If it's in an attic, we almost always wire in off of the garage door opener because that's a constant unswitched power source. So that's pretty common. And then the other one's cost. So, you know, the average cost, like if you call me and said, hey, I got a new construction home. We tested the buyer, you know, they're going to put a radon system in for us. I would say it's going to be $475. That's our standard. That's me cutting the pipe, the fan cost. We're going to warranty the fan for 5 years. We're going to guarantee below 4.0 if they want to retest. The problem is when I get in there and I put the fan in and there's no flow, now I've got to go back. I've got to cut the pipe out of the basement and do all these extra things. And so somebody already paid to have it put in once. And a lot of times they pay, you know, twice. They pay double a lot of times because of all the extra work. Yeah. And so, and again, interestingly enough, you don't have to be licensed to put the passive, but if I've got to have a license to activate it. So it's kind of strange. It's something that's been brought up quite a bit. So this is a passive system that was activated. This was a house out in Highland, and the homeowners had actually lived there for a couple of years, having had a passive system activated. Kids were in the basement all the time. They thought they were good to go. They were selling the house, so the buyer requested a radon test and it came back high. And they're like, how could that be, right? We've got this radon system. So you can see like this, that T right there was just completely buried down in the mud, doing absolutely nothing. And that's just like the aftermath of me digging it out through this hole right here. And so again, that's where you get into systems installed correctly, systems activated correctly. You know, a lot of times those systems get activated, somebody comes out, they're trying to get in, they're trying to get out, they cut it, put the fan in, roll down the road. Nobody ever says like, okay, well, my manometer is maxed out, it's not flowing. And so again, this family, they were there for a couple of years thinking, you know, everything was on the up and up. And unfortunately, when they tested, as they're moving out, they find out that although they had a radon system, they've been living in a house with an elevated radon level for the last 2.5 years. So
that liquid stuff
Yep.
that shows up, and if it evens out, that means it's not working properly. Did it do that in that house and they didn't pay attention, or was it still showing that it was actively working?
no, so like on, let's see, so on what you're talking about, right? You've got that U2 manometer. So you've got, you know, you got your liquid flow, right? It's like, we'll say like 1, 2, 3, and you got those numbers that run up the side. Each fan has a capacity to pull so much. And so based off of, so think about, you know, those, like if you're having like respiratory therapy, they have you blow into that thing and you've got to hold the thing for so long, right? So, yeah, so say like you have the ability to pull that ball, you know, to a level 2 and you only can do a level 1.5, or, and you can, whatever the case may be. A radon fan is the same way. So each fan, they're made to do more and more and more, but most fans, the new construction type fan, can only pull that manometer to a 2. That's all it can do. It can't pull it anymore. So if I start a system up and that red liquid comes up and it settles at a 2, that tells me that that fan is maxed. It's not moving in the air. It's just maxed out. And unfortunately, a lot of when they do those activations, they don't care. They don't look. So if I fire a system up and I'm at a 2, that tells me that I probably got this scenario going on underground. And that's when I start to dig. And so you should see, even on your, like even houses that you're selling that have systems or have a system put in, you should see that fan between like a 0.5, somewhere halfway up below a 1, and maybe just a hair like 1.2, 1.3 on that manometer. So those manometers are like, they'll have a 1, and then they'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then it'll be a 2.
Gotcha.
And then you'll have, so let's just see, you'll have, that would be, that's a 0, right? You want to see on most fans, you want to see that liquid come up somewhere around above a 5 and below a 1, and then like I'll be okay with if we get up to like say a 1.6, 1.7, depending on the conditions. But ideally, you should see if you have an active system on a home, you want to be somewhere in that 0.5 to 0.1. That's kind of that sweet spot for most of those standard level fans.
So that's when it looks like that J more,
Yep.
and if it evens out,
Yep.
then it's rock.
Yeah, exactly. So if you see that, right, if you see this, that means the fan's just not
I
doing
got you.
anything, so it's stopped to move.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so something always to watch out for. And again, the big one is like, so I understand like radon is a nuisance in the real estate world. Like I fully understand that it's something that holds up transactions. I get it. So the big thing that we look out for, and I try to tell people all the time, because we're not the cheapest person in town. Now with the discount that we offer you guys, we're very, very competitive, but what's an average sales commission like for selling real estate? What do you normally, what's the average?
Compensation on
Yeah,
closing.
Yeah, like what do you,
I think our team tracks out about 5,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
what's the percentage?
Oh,
Like
2.5 for a live
Compensation
station.
is
There is no
always
average. With the NAR lawsuit, we're not allowed to quote numbers. So compensation is always negotiable.
Okay.
Average, I would say is about 2.5%.
Would you do it for 0.5 if I asked you?
Would I?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Why?
Because my expertise is more valuable.
Exactly. And so that's how we view what we do with radon, right? Like I truly care about what we're doing inside your customer's home. And if you get to a 2, I know that fan is doing absolutely nothing. And so if you had an elevated radon level prior, if say you're representing a seller and I know that this is at a 2, the worst thing that can possibly happen as far as radon is concerned in the transaction is that the buyer does a retest and it's still high. Now we've spent however much time scheduling, however much time doing, however much time money we've spent, and we're right back to square one, right? So that's something when I say like, look for these things, it's because if we have a 2 on a radon fan, I'm there because the levels were elevated, they're still going to be elevated, right? So something to always look out for. Because again, if you guys, usually we're doing radon in the last week right before you close anyway, right? We're trying to get all these things done and we're trying to get these GFIs into the basement and all these other things that happen. The worst thing that can happen is that thing retests high and we're right back to square one. So just keep an eye. Again, you want to see here, you come in and if somebody's done, if your seller's done a radon system, and you come in and you see it up here, I'd be, you'd be calling me, but if you need to call somebody because this is doing nothing for your situation. Yeah, for sure. And that's, you know, that's a battle that we fight. Unfortunately, Radon, the pricing in this market kind of got set really, really low, and we've always kind of battled that, right? And so kind of similar to you guys, there's always somebody trying to get into real estate that's willing to sell the house for half of what you're willing to sell it for. It's just nature of the beast. Same with Radon. And again, you say, well, I'm not going to sell it for half because again, the years you have, the contacts you have, it's a totally different experience. And that's where we strive to be with AirSense and what we do for Radon. So two options that you might see. Again, this is kind of one that we talk about here. This is one you see most. You pull up to the house, you see that on the outside. But with a passive system, that's always going to be routed inside because it was done kind of when they were plumbing in the rough. But again, when you come in to a basement, you know, this should be labeled, you know, beyond what's necessary. You should see a manometer. If it hasn't been activated, again, you should still see, you know, the nuclear symbol thing going on, all those things. So, so keep an eye out for those. This is the question you were asking earlier. So this is what we see a lot. This was that on the island side, but this is what we see a lot. So either that, I've seen Walmart bags, I've seen everything you can imagine, but again, this is kind of like watching somebody drown and being unable to help them,
Yeah.
right? Like you can't, there's nothing you can do.
Just look
Yeah,
down
you just
there.
look down in there. So this is how we do our sump lids. We use those sealant around these things, but this is a big thing that we do that we don't see anybody else do, and it's that viewport. So that is A, I can look down in it,
Gotcha.
but B, this comes out and I can reach down in it. I can trip it to make sure it's running, or say my float got stuck up and it's just running. I can get my hand in there and do
That's
something
what
about
they're
it. So,
worried about. Is
Yep.
it the plug jammed
Yep.
or something like that?
Yep.
Like, I'm gonna have to run this whole system
Yep.
because it's completely sealed around like that.
Yep. So this one here, typically in a basement, I would have 4 screws in it because this was like finished LVP. I just use that Vita sealant to keep tearing that floor up. But you've got this rubber disconnect here, and then this comes out, and basically you just pop that up. The sump lid comes right off, and then it all goes right back together. So again, like with this, you're up the creek. Yeah, like you said,
busting.
you're tearing this all apart. You're breaking this check valve open, hoping that it, you know, is going to not give you a geyser of water. And then again, this acrylic, that clear acrylic,
Yeah.
the likelihood of getting it apart and back together is slim to none. So this is, like I said, this is something that we do that we take a lot of pride in. So it just makes it easier when somebody's got to get down in there. And again, you should see this. So like this is required, even on passive system installations, this is required. So this,
The seal, you mean?
the sealing of the sump,
Gotcha.
yeah, that should be a sealed lid to some degree. Now you'll see sometimes it'll have like a brand new sump lid, and it has the sump that's got the little V cut out, so you have like you got this, you know what I mean, and then you got your piping coming out here. All right, so sometimes I'll take that black plastic and I'll cut something just to pack, because it doesn't make sense to just trash this whole lid. A lot of times on older homes, either there's not one there, or it's something that's just completely worn out. But on a new construction, a lot of times I'll cut a black patch, then we'll put our viewport in and still leave you access to all that. But you should see that, and then you should also see on a passive system and an active system, that wall, they call that a wall to floor joint. That should be cleaned and sealed. And then like any cracks that are, you know, highly visible like that, all that should be sealed.
On the floor.
Yeah, so, yeah, and again, even on existing construction, 40-year-old homes or whatever, those are things to look out for. Like if you're not seeing those things done, you know, it's worth a phone call just to say, hey, you know, my buyer's gonna retest, like I cannot have this come back high. This is all supposed to be done based off of IEMA's radon code. You're supposed to be doing this, so look out for it. It's something to look out for. So
Meiji
again,
cut out. Meiji, no. Sorry.
So system labeling, right? But this is the kind of stuff that you should see, passive or active. You should see this kind of stuff. There's that manometer that we talked about. Same thing here. This is in Missouri. So interestingly enough, in Missouri, you can tap a sump as a suction point. In Illinois, you cannot. But you should see radon flow, you should see that sump lid should be labeled. This is my tagging here, because it was Missouri, so we always hang, and then you can see like that rubber coupler behind that tagging. That allows for all that to kind of be disassembled and put back together without some kind of giant mess. Yeah. And then this is something that we do, for anybody that we partner with. We leave behind a folder, and it's got all of our information, and it's got this little nifty guy. And what this does, it just tells the homeowner, we usually leave it on the counter. It tells the homeowner about the system, right? Because at some point, somebody's gonna have a question. And what we find that this does for you guys is it directs the calls to us versus them calling you going, hey, I was looking at my radon system, and then you're calling me going, hey, so we, exactly. So we leave one of these behind. They can go to our website, they see all of our stuff, they can see our, all those things. But it gives them an idea of like, okay, when they see their radon system, they to a degree know what they're looking at. Again, it curbs a lot of those calls back to you guys trying to figure out what's going on with the radon system. Questions?
Today we focused on radon. Since you're an environmental company, do you do other things or just radon right now?
No, just radon. So like mold, asbestos, lead, all those are a whole nother.
Sure.
We do not deal with any of those things currently.
Well, they all require licenses and things like that.
Yeah, and actually is much as cumbersome as radon is, like when you get into mold and lead, it's even, it's just a world that we often have to go down for the time being, so.
What is your cost to put in a system in an existing house that doesn't have?
Yeah, so our standard cost is $1,100. We give you guys a 10% discount, so we're $990. $990, yep. Yep, and that's everything. The warranty, we guarantee below 4.0 if they retest, all those things, right? So we keep anywhere from a week to 2 week lead time right now.
Okay.
We've just hired another tech, so we keep those lead times out. And currently, I still am on or do all of our mitigation. So if you ever have any issue like that, you call me. And I'm still out in the field and all that. So
Do you provide the testing as well?
we can, yeah. So it's a follow-up test. We carry 2 different licenses to kind of keep that break. They're $100 if you want to do a retest.
And what's the initial test?
For you guys, $100. Yeah, so 100 on both ends. Now, if you guys test, mitigate, usually we'll retest for free. I mean, we'll catch you guys. We're already there. But again, like I said, so Jason keeps the testing of measurement, as they call it, license. I don't have a measurement, so it's 2 totally different people.
Well, that's nice though, because most of the mitigation system or companies now, they can only put in a system, they
Yeah.
can't test the system.
Yeah.
So that's nice that you guys have both sides of it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the only way to know is to test. There's
Right.
no way, there's no way to look and go, oh yeah, the radon levels are way lower. And again, where that kind of crosses paths with you guys is as you're buying and selling those retests, I mean, and making sure that the levels are low. And the benefit is again that, I can say, hey, I'm gonna be there on the 17th to do an install. I've got to wait 24 hours before we can do a retest. I can have Jason here on Thursday. I can have your results by Friday, right? It kind of creates that streamline of being able to kind of flow through that process a lot easier. Because like I said, I did a lot of investor remodeling and stuff, and you guys get those inspection reports, and it's 3 GFIs in the basement, the kitchen sink's leaking, and oh yeah, your radon levels are high, right? And so you're immediately into like overdrive trying to find somebody to do all these other things. So with the radon, we kind of create a real easy process to get over that hump.
And then what is your phone number? You said to call you if you have questions.
Yeah, 618. I didn't bring any business cards, and I was dumb. I have my hands full of donuts.
He's got the imports.
Yeah, 618-593-4815.
And what was your last name? again?
Lusby, Lusby.
What's her first?
Jake. Captain Radon.
Jake from State Farm.
Jake from State. I almost had to quit wearing khakis for a while when that commercial came out. It was pretty bad. Pretty bad. Anything else? Appreciate you guys coming from your meeting
Appreciate you.
to entertain me and make me not feel so bad. So
Jake, you have a question in the chat.
Yeah.
How long does it take to install a brand new system? A day or a few hours, or how long?
roughly 4 hours on most standard installations.
You guys put past system then obviously that's on. What does it cost to put in a past system in a new construction?
Well, this is kind of like Jake said earlier, and then I just asked Terry and he said, I never paid for it, plumber does it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, but $475. If you have it done.
Yeah, to activate. Now, if we come in and run the whole passive system, we charge $650. And then 300 to activate if we do the
Gotcha.
passive, so you're into 950.
So you're around the same price.
Right, you're a little cheaper,
Okay.
yeah, because, so interestingly enough, the standard way to install a passive, right, so you got your concrete, you got your gravel under here, and then you got this layer of mud. Right, and again, unfortunately, before the concrete's ever there, the plumber takes that pipe, because it doesn't really want to do it anyways. He jams it down in the mud so the concrete truck doesn't knock it over. So now, instead of pulling through this gravel layer, where it's really good, I'm down here in the mud, and so what I have to do at that point is, a lot of times, I have to cut this pipe down. Usually I'll take some kind of hammer and a chisel and just drive that all the way down into the mud, where my pipe now is terminated here, and I'm pulling through this gravel layer.
Gotcha, so you're cutting it off, basically leaving the rest of it in.
Yeah, I'm just jamming, I'm just kind of clearing this from the picture, totally getting it all the way down in the mud. And then that leaves my pipe to pull through the gravel, which is what I'm after. Illinois' radon code does allow the passive system to be cored through after the fact. So like concrete's done, electrical's done, rough ends are done, plumbing's done, before they put insulation and drywall.
They're like, oops, we forgot the radon.
Well, so they call, so a lot of times, so we have a couple builders that we work with, and they let us come out right before installation and drywall. That way I can make a hole here and then run my pipe from there. And a effectively properly installed passive radon system will lower radon levels by 10 to 20% if they're done correctly with the sump lid and all those things. So when they're done correctly, there is a small sect of homes that say would have been a 4, but with the passive system, we've reduced by 10 to 20%. And because we did the passive, we get a 3. Now I avoid the activation altogether, but when they're done incorrectly, it's like it was never done. You know what I mean? So yeah, you can core after the fact and then run your pipe out and do all that. And like I said, we charge $650 to do it during the problem is that most builders don't want to bring in another contractor and work those schedules and all those things. And so, in the overall scheme of things, like so we did a lot with CA Jones. We did a lot of their activations. And then they switched and said, just put an active system in and be done with it because of the headache, right? Like they're selling all, especially O'Fallon. I think every home in O'Fallon's high for radon. I don't know why that is, but so we just, from the go, we just put the active system in and be done with it. It's to them, it's the $300 is worth, the headache and not having the headache.
Because I think it's by all the highways and stuff, because they're really high also in, lead and things like that.
Yeah.
They have to retest kids like every 3 months in
Yeah,
O'Fallon
really?
instead of around here.
Because we feed our kids paint.
Yeah.
Make
Paint
us
shit.
feel
But
better.
yeah, but
Paint
they-
shit.
they
Paint
not-
on the cement.
But
Yeah.
they say, I guess, because you're by a lot of highways and things like that,
Yeah.
all the fumes and stuff from the trucks and
Yeah.
everything, that causes a lot of that environmental issue.
Could be, yeah, we find a lot like rocky soil, like if soil's real rocky. Homes like old homes that used to, so 1980, they changed the building code to require gravel under the concrete. Prior to that, they used to just pack clay as tight as they possibly could and put concrete over it. And those never crack because compacted clay is like really solid. And B, the radon levels are typically lower. I mean, we do more radon work on newer homes than older homes. So I think the rocky soil contributes to a lot of that. And then the sump pits, those, again, because it pulls that suction down through the sump pit, it's the same way, it comes back out the same way. So you got open gravel, everything's kind of free to flow. It all comes out through the cracks in the sump pits. And, you know, I would say, sealing floor cracks and sealing sump pits, like, again, on a passive system would result in a lot less high test because.
I guess that's why they changed the rules and made you put this covered sealed
Yeah.
thing on the top, because you go in and people have a radon mitigation system.
Yeah.
They also have a sump pump and then, but it would just be open.
Yeah,
And so they're like, you're defeating the purpose of it.
yeah, I mean, you can take your hand and stick it by one of those incoming pipes in the sump pit and you can feel it pull air by your hand, you know what I mean? So again, the other side is there's some energy concern with that too, because you are taking conditioned air and just sucking it down through the sump pit, so you're kind of wasting it, but yeah.
Interesting. Can we share your video?
Yeah, for sure. As long as I don't have to hear it again. No, you're good. Yeah, yeah. Transposed into a text. Yeah. Yeah, the other thing we're working on right now, we're working on an app right now, and I've got a web browser version of it. I'm just gonna show it to you guys real quick. Can you tell me what you guys think? You don't need to see me. Do we have time? Are we good? If I take like 5 more of your minutes, you all right? Oh, Andrea's gonna kick my butt. She'll be back here in like 3 minutes, watch. Air sense.
Oh, yes.
I'm like done. I was throwing a tidbit.
I'm on it so I can make sure, because, okay, just so you guys are aware, if you ever join a thing via Zoom and it's not letting you in, it's probably because we didn't see it. Zoom changed their privacy notification where you have to be admitted one by one into a meeting. So team meeting's gonna be fantastic. Yeah. If you need to share your screen, click on this Zoom link down there. And then just leave that one open.
That's right here.
Oh, okay.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, I can't see this.
I'll let you know.
There you go.
Okay. So this is something that we worked with a third-party developer on. This is the web browser version. We're trying to get this into an app. I'm going to see, let's see, Jason. Yeah.
Stop me every time when you guys ask me for my passwords, and I'm like,
That's why I carry a book.
anytime I have to ask for you for a password, I'm like, oh gosh, here we go.
So we developed this in a web browser version. Again, we're trying to get it to a mobile app. We're working on. So this is what we call the portal. And I can get you guys access to this if it's something that you're interested in. Most people just prefer to pick up the phone and call. But so we basically, if you call me and said, hey, Jake, I need a price on the mitigation, I'm going to ask you a series of questions about the home so that I can kind of gauge what all we need to do so I can get you some pricing pretty quickly. I basically took all those questions and I put them in this, well, a guy from Egypt. Upwork is a help. It's like, so first thing I'm going to ask you, is the home newer than 1980 or older than 1980? Anything older than 1980 rarely has that gravel present. And so a lot of times I'm going to need to run multiple suction points to get the radon levels lower. So let's just, for the sake of time, I'm going to say, so you tell me it's newer than 1980. I'm going to ask you how many square feet it is. Anything above 2,000 square feet. I'm going to have to upgrade the fan. A standard flow fan about 2,000 square feet starts to lose its ability to communicate through that much space. And I need to upgrade the fan. Again, for the example, we're just going to say 1,800. I'm going to ask you what kind of foundation you have. You got a basement, a slab on grade, or crawl space. Basement slab on grade, no change to price. Crawl space, then I've got to encapsulate, so that's gonna totally change the price. And we charge $1.50 a square foot to go and encapsulate and install the radon suction piping and all that, so.
So that's on top of the 99.
No, so once you tell me crawl space, we go back to $0 and then we start building from basically square footage of the home times
Gotcha.
$1.50.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how we price those. We'll say basement. Does the home have any additions or conversions? The big one we see is garages converted to living space. We see that all the time. And the problem is that those garages tend to lead to elevated, the radon levels can be elevated in the garage, which leads to the radon levels being elevated inside the home. And so what we have to do is we have to add a suction point horizontally. So like I'm in the basement, the garage is over me, obviously. I'm gonna have to put a pipe in horizontally to get into the layer of gravel under the garage. So that can affect the price. We're gonna say no for easy's sake. So like there's a lot more questions that are asked based off how you answer. This is kind of the easiest scenario is a new home with no extra stuff. So it's gonna show you your price, which I already told you was $990. But you can do a couple things, right? So for your closing statements, you need an estimate to attach to your closing documents a lot of times, or an invoice. You can hit get that, and it's gonna get it for you right there. Yeah, so you book that service, you've got it right here. You don't have to call me and say, hey, I need an estimate or invoice. Once you generate this, once we mark that invoice paid, it's gonna reflect as paid in a PDF. So this is like this has got all like the nomenclature that we have to put in there for the radon code, but this is basically everything that we're gonna do on the house. It's gonna show you the standard rate. It's gonna show you that discount. And it's a PDF. You can just say, yeah, what's it say? Karen Harman. I couldn't remember the old password. So this is a PDF. You can save it to your computer, put the address that it belongs to, and you're good. You got it right there. The cooler feature of this is it's tied to, I knew I was gonna do that. That's why I said should be. No kidding. In Evansville? I'll get into that. So this is typically, there's not an issue with it. This is tied to my, we use Go High Level as our CRM platform. It's tied to my schedule, so you can actually open this to see when I'm available and pick a date. And then it'll.
You can get it scheduled right then too. Perfect.
Yeah, so the idea, I'll get you guys to log in and make sure this is all flowing how it should. The idea is that you're meeting with your client on the home after an inspection and you're working through like, okay, we're gonna have to do this, we're gonna have to do this to get the house sold. You can open this up, answer the series of questions. It's gonna give you the price right there. You show the client, say, hey, it's gonna be $990. They've got next Thursday at 2 o'clock open. Do you want me to book it for you? And they say, you book it right there. I get a notification, it goes right on my schedule. We really tried, that was the idea behind this. Again, it's a little cumbersome now because you've got to go through the web portal, a web browser. It's still very streamlined, but we are trying to get it to an app to make it that much easier. I'll follow up with Jen and Andrea and get you guys to log in for this if you'd like to use it. That's it.
For listings, do you allow the sellers to pay at closing?
Depends on how close we are to closing sometimes, like, like anything else, you've been burned in the past, but it also depends on who we're working with, right? Obviously, we're building a relationship with you guys. So if you say, Jake, like, we're tight, can you give me 2 weeks? I'm gonna, you're 8 weeks out.
Like you're my family. Well, that might not be helpful.
Yeah.
Like we try. Sometimes you're selling a house and that closing statement is 0-0 on both sides, you know what I mean? So we'll try to, as long as we're pretty close. We've had even before where we'll say, hey, we're closing on the 18th. Can you guys schedule for the 16th? That way you're right behind. We do that a lot. We do our best to work with people. So. Anything else? Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me in and asking questions and all those things. we will, I think we're trying to make it. We good? Nah, it's okay. Slow clap, golf clap.
Golf clap.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.